Hello to you all, wherever and whenever you are in the world. We at OrthoHub are excited to be hosting this global webinar with the International Orthopedic Diversity Alliance. We have many shared goals, so it's a privilege to be partnering up today. Many of you are new to OrthoHub, so just briefly, you can find us online at www.orthohub.xyz, where our goal is to provide freely accessible interactive orthopedic education for all. We are across all the social media platforms, so please do follow us there. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's quite a lot of brand new video content coming in the next week or so. We also do an OrthoHub See One Do One podcast, so please do check it out if you haven't already. It's on every podcast platform. And the latest episode is with Mo Bandari from Canberra, and he was great fun. It's been downloaded in 78 countries now, so it's not just a UK or European thing. It's for anyone associated with orthopedics, and they're on all the platforms. The OrthoHub vision is to create an orthopedic community that is digital, global, freely accessible, diverse, and inclusive. And so we're proud to work alongside partners such as Ioda and Dupuy Synthes, Johnson & Johnson, who share our values and ambitions. We're committed to diverse and inclusive panels at all our events, and our next two upcoming webinars are Peds Trauma for Everyone. That'll be a blessing for that next general on call. And then in April, we have pelvic trauma in the real world, with another fantastic lineup. We're really looking forward to today's event, and so I will hand over to Caroline Hing as chair. Caroline?
Thank you, Cash. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the first of a series of webinars hosted by OrthoHub from the International Orthopedic Diversity Alliance. Our first webinar is on the topic of creating a diverse and inclusive environment in global orthopedics. Before we begin, there's just some housekeeping. So please put any questions that you might have to the panel in the question and answer box, and we will endeavour to answer as many as we can between the talks and also at the end. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our first international speaker, Jenny Green from Australia, who was the founding member of Ioda and has driven us along its path. She will be just giving a brief introduction and then talking with Andrew Wines on the experience in Australia. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you, Caroline, for the introduction. And thank you everyone for joining us to find out what Ioda is doing and who we are, and a little bit more about what is happening around the world in terms of diversity in orthopedics. Who are we? We're a collaboration to advance the inclusion of women and underrepresented minorities in orthopedics. And this organisation was inspired by the work of Vivian PC Chai, one of our speakers tonight, Christy Webber, past AOAS president, and also AJ Johnson, who did a lot of work in and still is as the chair of the AAOS Diversity Advocacy Board, particularly with minorities. Our founding group is 45 orthopaedic surgeons from 30 nations and 6 continents, and we're very honoured to include 12 Orthopaedic Association presidents, past, present and future, from AALOS, from America, Australia, Britain, Canada, EFORT, Estonia, Malaysia and Sweden. We also have members who are in leadership at APOA, at EFORT. We're collaborating with SICOT and also with the AO Alliance, and we have members in the leadership of all the established US diversity organisations listed below. So what do? We advocate for diversity in orthopaedics. Our group as a whole, many of us are mentors of future orthopaedic surgeons who are female or from underrepresented minorities. We publish scientific journals on diversity in orthopaedics. We aim to develop diversity strategies, research methods to improve diversity, and we share diversity insights between nations. We're also collaborating on the first International Symposium of Orthopaedic Women's Societies, which is an initiative of Camila de Matos from the Brazilian Association of Orthopaedic Women, and Dawn Laporte, the president of the Ruth Jackson Orthopaedic Association. Anyone can join Ioda. We have orthopaedic surgeons and trainees, but we welcome medical students, junior doctors, orthopaedic industry members, Orthopaedic Research and Education Institutes, Orthopaedic Association staff. In fact, anyone who's interested in diversity in orthopaedics is welcome. So please get involved. Join us on our website. You can register there as a member. You can subscribe to our e-newsletter, read and listen various resources on our website, including podcasts and webinars on diversity in orthopaedics. We're happy to share your diversity events, and you can follow us on all the usual social media outlets. Thank you. We'll proceed on now. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Andrew Wines. Andrew has been really prominent in promoting diversity in Australia in our Orthopaedic Association, and he's currently on the board of the AOA. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us.
So a little bit about the Australian Orthopaedic Association. So Australia is a big country, but a small population. We've only got 25 million people, but we've got 20 million kangaroos. We're a very multicultural country, and our First Nations people have been here for over 60,000 years. The Australian Orthopaedic Association has 1,300 members, just over 200 trainees with a national training program. At present, we have 5% female orthopaedic surgeons, and our female trainees are 15% of the total trainee body.
Similar to particularly the US, we've had an experience of having over 50% medical graduates being female for at least 20 years. And as you can see, it's been a fairly flatline curve of women engaging and training into orthopaedics over that time. And this was one of the stimuli for the Orthopaedic Association to develop our diversity strategy.
Why is diversity important? Well, it's important on a number of different factors. And a paper from McKinsey, the management consultants, showed that organisations with at least 30% diversity tended to attract the very best talent. They were the most innovative, and they were the best at making appropriate decisions.
In addition to this, diversity as a healthcare worker is even more important for our communities, because there's strong evidence that communities that have greater diversity in their workforce also have decreased issues with healthcare inequity.
What have we found are the greatest barriers to diversity? Well, they include the lack of appropriate and visible role models, unconscious bias in reporting, in selection and in promotion, and a lack of flexible working options.
In 2018, our then all-male Australian Orthopaedic Board invited the women of our association to collaborate on designing a diversity strategy focused on increasing the inclusion of women in orthopaedics in Australia.
And the vision of the association was to create a culture of inclusion that promoted and enables all people into and within the profession of orthopaedic surgery to the benefit of the Australian people. And there were three core strategies: culture and leadership, advocacy and engagement, and inflexibility. And
the importance of leadership when you're running a diversity strategy really can't be underestimated. It has been shown to drive the foremost effective diversity initiatives, including communicating and embedding values, driving unbiased selection and promotion, supporting men and women with family responsibilities, and providing a very visible and committed leadership team.
Each aspect of the strategy has specific aims. For example, the aims in culture and leadership are to remove diversity and equality barriers and create an enabling environment, to deliver sessions in education, training and ethical decision-making in leadership, to mentor and support women to leadership positions, to benchmark against well-recognised best practice, and to create an environment of psychological safety.
So rather than just having a strategy with some ideas, this is a strategy that has a report card and a lot of deliverables. And as you can see, we're slowly working through these, and this strategy will be reviewed at the 5-year mark and revisited.
There's no doubt that leadership is absolutely crucial in diversity, and it's been the board that has been a critical driver of our diversity strategy. Currently, 30% of the board are female, though there's only 5% of the membership, and women across the membership, across the leadership positions and committees in the Australian Orthopaedic Association now hold 16% of the roles.
So advocacy and engagement have been achieved through many measures.
And we've done our absolute best to visibly promote active, positive role models, both male and female, at events for particularly junior orthopaedic surgeons.
In our scientific meetings, we have established a new policy to increase visibility and inclusion of women as panel members, guest speakers and session chairs. We now have a permanent female representative on our continuing orthopaedic education committee, and we also provide breastfeeding rooms and childcare services at all AOA meetings.
We have a quarterly diversity e-newsletter that goes out to all members, exploring various aspects of diversity. And the most popular article of all has been from a male colleague who shares parenting and work with his physician wife.
We have done a lot of research on the data from our trainee selection process, and we know that there is a degree of gender bias in the first stage of our selection, which involves producing a CV and a reference. But in our second stage, which is our interview process, a series of 8 mini interview panels with 3 panel members on each interview, has been shown to be non-gender biased. And this has affected our selection now. We have decided to increase the number of applicants we interview to decrease our bias. So we've gone from 25% now up to 80%. And over the last 4 years, we've had 40 to 50% female viewers compared to an average of 11% for the previous decade.
One of our most successful strategies has to been run workshops for medical students and junior doctors, where they've been exposed to a number of male and female role models, and where some of the myths surrounding orthopaedics, such as it being a boys' club, can be debunked.
We've increased our flexibility in training by moving from a time-based curriculum to a competency-based curriculum. This allows our trainees a lot more flexibility in whether they stop and start training at various intervals. We've also introduced flexible training posts for our trainees as well, and they are truly flexible, so they are negotiated by the trainee and the employer of the hospital and the staff that they're working with.
We have 3 diversity committees at the Australian Orthopaedic Association. The OUR committee is at the forefront of gender diversity. We've found that committees focused on gender diversity are more effective with both male and female leaders involved in the process. As a result, OUR has several senior male members who hold leadership roles in the association and hold the power to affect change.
And because we only have 5% female AOA members, we have also developed what we call the AOA Champions of Change group, and this is a male state representative from each state, and these are nominated by the state committees. And these colleagues advocate for diversity on a large number of committees. They sit on the state committee, they sit on regional training committees, and they're of great value because we just do not have enough women to go around, and there are many committees that do not have a female, and so we're very grateful for the men who step into these roles and advocate in the absence of women. As you may have noticed also that there are a couple of women, including myself, on this committee, and all our committees are diverse now and as wherever possible. And we know from evidence that men and women working together in diversity is a much more successful program for gender diversity.
As home to the world's oldest continuous culture and 270 other cultures, Australia is one of the most multicultural nations on the earth. We've now started working towards a cultural inclusion strategy. We will soon graduate our first Indigenous orthopaedic surgeon and are very keen to create a visible pathway for our First Nations people to create a more inclusive environment for our many members of diverse cultural background.
So in conclusion, we know that diverse health workforces improve healthcare inequities.
We know that diverse organisations attract the very top talent, increase innovation, and are better decision makers.
So finally, the pathway to diversity is increasing visible role models, minimising unconscious bias, and increasing flexibility. Thank you. And thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny and Andrew. I think we've got a question from Mari Thiat, who wants to know, regarding the flexible working hours for trainees, how did you get buy-in from hospitals?
Did you want to answer that, Andrew? Or?
Yes, so we made it non-optional. So each of the bigger hospitals with 3 or more accredited trainees had to come up with a program that enabled flexible working hours, shared jobs, those types of things. So it was a condition of that hospital being registered by the Australian Orthopaedic Association.
So if you don't agree to it, you don't get a trainee.
That's tough but effective, I suspect. So that's a really good lesson for us to take on board, perhaps in the UK and across the world. Right, let's just see if we've got any other questions. I've got a question just on mentorship. So do you think a female mentor for another female trainee is better or worse than a male mentor, or do you think it just doesn't make any difference?
Andrew?
I think both are important, and I think both have different roles. Certainly, as a male, in a male dominated association at the moment, I think males can be very valuable in assisting particularly the younger members and the trainees in establishing themselves in the association. But I absolutely think, and we certainly see this at the hour workshops, that it's really, really important for the junior female doctors to see female orthopaedic surgeons working, juggling work-life commitment, families, having kids, being on call. So it's absolutely vital that there's a female representation as well. But I think both are important.
I would agree with Andrew's comment. I'd also say that the young women who've come to our workshops have been really strongly impressed by the presence of men teaching them there. We've had a lot of positive feedback about that. They feel like they're being welcomed into the organisation because it's not just women welcoming them in. We've had our vice presidents and presidents welcoming these young women at these events. And so they feel that the whole organisation is welcoming them. And I agree with Andrew. I think men and women are very important, both of them. But one thing I would say, often the men are in positions of power where they have great opportunities for sponsorship, not just mentorship. And I think that's important as well.
Jenny, I think that's a great point regarding sponsorship and supporting female trainees so that they take on leadership roles as well. Thank you. And now we move on to our next speaker, who's Deepa Bose, and Deepa's done a huge amount of work for World Orthopaedic Concern. Is very well known in the field, and she's going to be talking to us about the experience in the UK and also across developing nations. Thank you, Deepa.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you to the organisers, in fact, for inviting me. It's a great honour, and it's very exciting to be a part of this. It's a topic that's not just close to my heart, but so important in fact, for the future of orthopedics. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit about diversity in orthopedics best practice in the UK, and then I'll mention a little bit about work in developing countries. So first of all, why is diversity important in orthopedics or in any field? It's important because it allows you to pick the best people for the job, not just a small pool of people who are available to be picked. It gives you a better understanding of our patients because our populations are diverse, so we should be as well. And it also allows us to provide role models for future surgeons. There are a few sort of side effects or unintended consequences of diversity which we do need to be aware of, such as an increased gender pay gap or devaluation of the profession. That doesn't mean to say that these should be deterrents, but we need to be aware of them so that we can address them. So if we start with medical students in the UK, we are extremely fortunate because we have a lot of very, very active surgical and orthopedic societies in our universities. So I know that the University of Birmingham Orthopedic Society is extremely active. They recently held a webinar on women in orthopedics. And similarly, there are lots of other universities with very active societies. Becoming involved in those societies, because as they say, you can only be or want to be what you can see. So if we present those societies with diverse role models, then it becomes evident to medical students quite early on in their career that it is possible to do orthopedics no matter what your background is. Also engaging with medical students when they come to visit the hospitals in terms of their clinical attachments, etc. That's really quite important in terms of engaging them early on. Speaking about training, it's actually very similar to what is happening in Australia. So less than full-time training is now firmly entrenched in the UK, and the programs don't really have an option. Any trainee has the opportunity to go less than full-time, and that must be accommodated for in the program. Mentoring and peer support is actually hugely important in encouraging diversity, and we're very lucky in the UK that we do have a lot of diverse role models and mentors to provide that. There's now a supported return to work program that is available to any trainee in any program, and so that is supposed to ease the path back into training if someone's been away on maternity leave or some other kind of leave. And finally, there is now equitable parental leave. So that means that parental leave can be granted to either the mother or the father. And in fact, in our program right now, we have a male trainee who has taken parental leave because his wife is a neurosurgical trainee, and the decision they took was that he would take the parental leave and she would return to work, to training earlier. So things are slowly changing with the help of all of these initiatives to support people who work less than full-time or who have family responsibilities. There's obviously more work to be done in the form of providing, say, places to breastfeed, creches, and although we call it flexible training, it probably isn't truly flexible yet because there are still some obstructions in the way. Retention of female trainees is actually a big challenge in the UK and is now the topic of quite a bit of research going on. So whilst there's still work to be done, I feel that since I was in training, we've come quite a long way towards supporting diversity in orthopedics. At the consultant level, we also have some very important initiatives, one of which is the Lady Estelle Wolfson Leadership Fellowship. So this is a fellowship in clinical leadership, which is open to women. We have the BOA, which is the British Orthopaedic Association, Diversity and Inclusion Policy and Action Plan. There's a lot of support around looking at the composition of the committees and councils of different societies like the BOA. and like the other specialist societies, to make sure that the membership is represented on the committee. And again, there is mentoring and support available at the level of a consultant. As was previously said, unconscious bias plays a really big role in how people are selected for orthopedic training and how they progress through training, how they're examined, and how they complete their training. And so training in unconscious bias, recognizing unconscious bias, and equality and diversity training is now mandatory in the UK for all selection and interview panels, including the Specialist Advisory Committee and the training program directors and examiners. There is also quite a lot of initiative around recognizing and rewarding diversity, such as the SAS doctors. So those are the staff grade and associate specialist doctors who are sometimes referred to as non-consultants, although I think it's a shame that they should be referred to as non-anything. But there is quite a lot of movement around recognizing people who aren't on traditional career pathways and recognizing their contribution. I'll speak a little bit about my work abroad. Now, the first thing that I would say is that I don't in any way, shape or form claim to represent other countries. I live and work in the UK, and that is where I practice. And so that is where my knowledge lies. I wouldn't dream of saying that I represent any other country because they have their own women in orthopedics who can represent them very ably. But what I will say is that I do, as Caroline has said, I do a lot of work in developing countries. I'm chairman of an organization called World Orthopaedic Concern. This is a charity that's affiliated with the BOA, and we do a lot of work around training and education in developing countries. And so the picture that you can see on the left-hand side is me teaching an Ilazarov course in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. And then the picture on the right is several female orthopedic surgeons graduating from Addis Ababa in 2017, several years later. This is not my achievement. It is a testament to the fact that Ethiopia has been very supportive of women in orthopedics. And what that means is that there are now more female role models for people to see and to emulate. Women in Surgery Africa is a very new organization. It's in its infancy, and there isn't a separate orthopedic component to that, but they have made great strides, and they're doing really great work in terms of providing role models and peer support. So, as you will all know, there are lots of different supportive organizations that provide mentorship and peer support, such as the Ioda. In the UK, we have WINS, Women in Surgery. There's Women in Surgery Africa that I've just talked about. And then the Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society, the Australian societies that you've heard about. On a more local level, we have an organization called FEMERA, which is Female Orthopedic Surgeons in the UK. This was started many years ago, about almost 3 decades ago, by Ruth Case, who is a consultant orthopedic surgeon who used to practice in Weston-super-Mare. She's now retired. But Ruth started this about 30 years ago, and there are now several different branches of FEMERA in all the different regions. We provide informal mentorship and support. So what can we do to encourage diversity? I suspect you'll hear a lot of repetition in today's talks, which is a good thing because it means that we're all thinking along the same lines. So positive role models, early exposure at the level of the medical students, opportunities for less than full-time training, flexible training and flexible working, respectful challenge to outdated attitudes and behaviors. And this is where actually having male allies and friends can be very, very useful. Mentoring and peer support. I agree with what was said, that actually it doesn't matter who mentors you. Men and women play different roles in mentorship. Equitable parental leave to allow for family life, and research into the barriers as to why women don't want to join orthopedics or why they leave early. So I hope that we will get from the picture on the left, which is equality, where everyone's given the same box to stand on, to the picture on the right, where actually no one needs a box because there are no barriers. Thank you.
Thank you for a great talk, Deepa, and it's really interesting to see what's going on across the world. So we've got a couple of questions from the audience which are general to the panel. One from Anna Carreiro, who wants to know, do you think that having an IODA student branch across the world could make medical students more aware of what you do? And that might be better towards Jenny for an answer. Jenny, if you switch your microphone and camera on.
Sorry, Caroline, could you just repeat that once more?
So the question was, it's from Anna Carreiro, and she wants to know whether you think having an IODA student branch across the world could make medical students more aware of what you do. And if so, would you open a student branch to encourage students from a younger age to take part in activities like the webinar?
Well, Ioda is open to students already. So students can join, and we'd welcome students forming their own subcommittees and groups within Ioda. So they're most welcome.
Great. And then Hamish wants to know, what's been the biggest challenge IODA has faced after the creation of the organisation?
Oh, I think a lot of it is coordination, time zones. There's a great amount of enthusiasm, but it's the time to do the work and set up things so that we can coordinate and communicate easily. But I think it's very positive. There haven't been too many barriers. There's been a huge amount of enthusiasm.
Great, thank you, Jenny. And then a question for Deepa from Kat Malik. Do you have a link for Femera?
We don't actually. It's quite an informal thing, but I can put my details on the chat, and I'm happy to give more information.
Great, thank you. And moving on now, we have Ronald Navarro from America, who's going to give us a perspective from the American Latino Orthopedic Association. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you all for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you to the Ioda as well as the webinar committee. I'm a member of that as well. I have no conflicts pertinent to this talk, and I really appreciate this fine group for the work they're doing and the presenters today. This is a white background in America. I think both Lin-Manuel Miranda and the Harvard Business School really do believe that in America, immigrants do get the job done. I hope I can share that more today. I have some disclaimers. We're all here to promote new thinking. I think I'm singing to the choir today. This is a very committed group. There's been talk of unconscious and conscious bias, and I hope that nobody, and I don't think this group is engaged in conscious or unconscious denial. I will speak about underrepresented in medicine. I've heard that's actually a newer term instead of underrepresented minorities, and U.S. Latino diversity to some degree. I'm just one person. There's so many dimensions of diversity, and I will not discuss social determinants of health, even though they're really important in all of this. I think it's important to storytell and just to know where I'm coming from. I'm the youngest of a family of 5 boys to an immigrant Mexican father and a mother whose parents were immigrants from Mexico. No education in my father, and high school education in my mother. I went to a predominantly African-American high school and played American football. That's my twin brother and I. I'm married to a Caucasian woman and I have mixed children. So that's the perspective I come from. It's important to know. Everybody's been seeing this in America and abroad. There's been civil unrest in America. This is part of the contextual social milieu. There's issues of border walls, putting up walls and taking them down. Sexual harassment and abuse has brought forth the Me Too movement. We're a sharply divided country in America, and there are hashtags that come about. I look like a surgeon. I am a surgeon también, and also the Be Ethical campaign, which we hope oversees all that. These issues are difficult to discuss, so I think that this group is amazing in putting forth an effort to talk through a lot of this. Years ago, I was asked to give a talk that was somewhat similar, but don't worry, I've made new slides. And Tony Romeo, a shoulder surgeon in the US, said to me, Ron, talk about colorblind and cultural competence. I looked it up and found that colorblind care is care that's rendered without regard to race, and cultural competence is the ability of providers and organizations to effectively deliver healthcare services that meet social, cultural, and linguistic needs of patients. So I said, is this really a thing? I went to the literature and found a couple of papers. And one says Black male patients, and this study was only conducted in men, were significantly more likely to undergo preventative screening tests and agree to a flu shot if they were offered by Black male physicians rather than white male physicians. And in another study, African American and Latino patients who perceive racism in the healthcare system are significantly more likely to prefer physicians of their own race. What about a diverse workforce? These two publications both generally show that improvements on patient-related outcomes are seen in health professionals with culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and language concordance is important. The language concordant doctors and health system interventions seem to promote health, as shown by these two publications. We've been involved in research in our patients and possible disparities. We published in osteoporosis and care of minorities. We published in ACL reconstruction, and we also recently published in shoulder arthroplasty, and we published in several other areas. But is the window closing on race studies? These two publications, Clinical Orthopedics and Related Research, as well as JAMA, recently have thought through this and think that race captures a lifelong social experience, and residual confounding cannot be eliminated after statistical control for weak proxy measures such as education level or financial status. You know, I gave my own sputum to Ancestry.com, and at some point in the past, this was what when my makeup was. I'm Mexican American and have that culture as my background, but this looked like I was a lot of other things, mainly Spanish and indigenous American. But then some years later, then numbers changed, and I was more Spanish and even less indigenous American and even more Italian. I guess that's why I like the Italian food. On to the idea of a Latino Orthopedic Association. There is one in the U.S. at the American Association of Latino Orthopedic Surgeons. I'm a member. It represents not only members of Latino descent, but all orthopedists who treat members of Latino and Hispanic communities. It's gaining in membership and acceptance. It's younger than Gladden and Ruth Jackson, the African American, and the Society for Women Orthopedic Surgeons. Its inception was in 2009. We owe a lot to Ramon Jimenez on the left, and Richard Zaponte, who's recently passed away, on the right. He hired me as my first job out of training before I joined Kaiser Permanente. So this group supports students, tracks young, interested individuals in orthopedics, has an annual luncheon at our Orthopedic Academy meeting, and is attempting to create linkages to other groups in the U.S. and abroad. The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons as well is really looking at this, and just some data and numbers for you. Hispanics are close to 60 million, or 18.3% of the U.S. population. And in California, where I live, they're 15.5 million, or 39% of the population, and growing. They still continue to be 2% of orthopedic surgeons in the U.S. as of September 2019, and likely less in leadership. The data on the right shows all underrepresented in medicine. This was a January 2021, 12.5 of board of directors. I was recently a board of director and termed off. Cabinet advisory board, council, and committee leadership, 8%, 8.67%. others of these. The numbers are slightly increasing, and this is these are just the facts. The AAOS board, though, has made a really concerted effort and is working with their diversity advisory board, and you see there, so they have a focused effort, and we're excited to see further changes coming along. So I'm going to share some data and literature with you at the end here that really talks to how we can get things to come along better. And as others have said, some of this may be repetitive. These are recent publications that look at different items to help move people into the roles of orthopedic surgeons from underrepresented in medicine backgrounds. And the very first one looks at letters of recommendation, LORs, and it says that the use of a standardized LOR may reduce gender and race-based bias in the narrative assessment of applicants. What about choosing underrepresented in medicine applicants? It's been seen that the colloquially defined fit, we want to fit our program, can act to reinforce implicit biases and allow prejudicial disqualification of applicants that hinders the needed progress in diversity. However, an understanding of values fit, to fit to the values of your residency program, and to think about culturally adding to the residency, can promote the drive for diversity that others have even pointed out already, that's essential to growth and success of the profession. The idea of mentors and sponsors, underrepresented in medicine faculty ultimately equal underrepresented in medicine residents. From the orthopedic residency program perspective, the greatest perceived barrier to increasing the racial ethnic diversity of residents in their program is lack of underrepresented in medicine faculty. An international perspective like today has been put forth by the Carousel of Presidents and an AOA critical issues look, and they put forth a number of initiatives and ideas in this. And you can see the paltry growth of Hispanics, 1.4 per decade, 1.4% African Americans as well, in terms of underrepresented in medicine. So more work needs to be done. Talking to orthopedic surgery faculty, there's a lack of diverse faculty, and that is shown here. So to address the differences seen in faculty diversity, a concerted effort should be made to recruit and promote a more diverse faculty given similar qualifications and capabilities were proven. And you can see the table that was from this publication shows the small numbers, even though 17.3% of the US Census Hispanic and Latinos comprised 1.8% of faculty in orthopedic training programs. The JBJS recently has come forth in November of 2020 and put forth, and I direct your eyes to the bottom highlighted portion. They're supporting initiatives to increase minority representation in orthopedic surgery programs and academic faculty throughout the US, and publish data on these efforts. And they look forward to promote greater diversity within their organization as well. I asked them if I could be an editor. That's kind of a joke. So just recently, as recent as this week, I saw this, and Hispanic groups are really reaching out and saying, what is going on in terms of underrepresented minorities, medical students, and this. So this was a questionnaire just put out this week. So we're still asking the same questions. So we talked about sponsorship earlier. So who lifted me up? My parents, my brothers, my wife, my two children. Who has sponsored me? Dr. Fu, I see, is on this call. He, Italian Americans, sponsored me in medical school. JP Warner in my training. Once again, Dr. Fu throughout and further. An Armenian American was the first to hire me, and I've sponsored females, Asians, and Persians, and I'm continuing to mentor others. And I want to direct your attention to mentor.org, and I think that's important to know. I'm going to end here. Dr. King, as well as others, have thought about this, and we hope that one day we can all be judged by not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And we've heard other thoughts of how there's much more that unites us than divides us. We all have to be together, but we have to understand our differences and find growth among those who don't actually always agree with us. So in conclusion, Cultural and language concordance are critical for better patient care. Racial disparity in health outcome studies, I think, are revealing, and I would encourage others to be involved in these questions. Hiring is the holy grail. Diverse and underrepresented in medicine residents are aided by underrepresented in medicine attendings. Mentoring, sponsoring is encouraging at all encouraged at all stages, as others have said, and more work is to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron, for a great talk and some really interesting points on sponsorship and mentorship. Do we have any more questions from the audience for our panelists? I think Laura's just said that the papers are really helpful, and there are quite a lot of papers out there now on diversity and initiatives to try and improve the situation. Right, so I don't think we've got any more open questions for the moment, so we'll go on to Laurie. So Laurie Hiemstra is based in Banff in Canada, and she will be talking about the Canadian experience. Thank you, Laurie.
Hi, thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. It is morning here in Western Canada, but thank you very much for inviting me to present today. Both to Ioda and to OrthoHub. It's a real honor, and I really feel like we're coming together as a group, and I think the best part is that we're making friends with each other around the world. It really is an amazing group, and I'm very proud to be part of it. So I've been asked to share today what's been going on in Canada in orthopedics with regards to diversity, and I'm going to be concentrating mostly on gender diversity, but we'll talk a little bit about the other minorities also. Just to introduce myself, I am an orthopedic surgeon, and I specialize in sport medicine, knee ligament reconstruction, and I live in Banff, which is in the Rocky Mountains in Canada, where it is almost 6 o'clock in the morning. So I am proud to be from Canada. Canada is a large country, and in fact is the second largest country in the world. In fact, there are, from east to west, 4.5 hours of time zones. So the challenges of time zones are not new to us in Canada. But we are big in size and we are big in heart, but we are not big in population. And so similar to Australia, in which we do have some kinship, we have 37.5 million people in Canada, and most of those are spread right along that southern border, which is right next to the United States, which is our big brother that we really love to share with, but also stay independent from. So these are some of the challenges we face in Canada. We do have 2 official languages, English and French. However, Canada really prides itself in being a multicultural country. We have over 250 ethnic groups in Canada, and like myself, many of us are first-generation Canadians who immigrated from many different countries. My parents immigrated from Holland after World War II. Canada is also very beautiful, and we have a lot of nature and actually boast more than 50% of the natural lakes in the world. And depending on which definition you use, we get the North Pole. So with regards to orthopedics, there are almost 1,700 orthopedic surgeons in Canada. These are 2019 stats, so fairly recent. And if you do the math, this translates into about 3.7 surgeons per 100,000 people. And although that number itself may not have too much meaning for everyone, it does indicate that we are actually very underserviced in orthopedics in Canada. And in fact, that number, 3.7, is the lowest number of surgeons per capita of the G7 countries. Of those 1,700 surgeons, 13% are female. So just to put that into context, like the US and Australia, for many years now, half of our medical school classes have been female. If you look at all the physicians in Canada, about 42% are female. So even if you look at the world stage, and the Ioda papers have shown that Canada actually fares fairly well with regards to the number of female orthopedic surgeons, really we have a long way to go. And like most countries, of all the surgical subspecialties, orthopedics continues to have the most challenges in catching up to gender equity. There is hope, however. Although progress is slow, the number of females in orthopedics is growing in Canada, and now over 1/4 of our residency positions are occupied by women. So things are looking much, much better. When you look at leadership positions, however, the numbers in Canada really mirror what is happening in the rest of the world. There are very few women occupying the higher level leadership positions. We will, however, in 2022 have the first ever female president of the Canadian Orthopaedic Association. I am sad to say that she will be the 77th president of the association and still the first woman. But finally, things are coming along. In the last 3 years, great strides have been made for gender diversity within orthopedic surgery in Canada. It was in 2017 that the first woman was selected onto the executive of the COA. And with this, an initiative was started to specifically and methodically raise awareness to improve gender diversity in Canadian orthopedics. That initiative has been rapidly gaining momentum, and that's some of this stuff I want to share with you today. And many of it will mirror a lot what Jenny talked about and Andrew talked about what's happening in Australia. So it's kind of nice to see that we're all following the same pathway. Canada may be a little bit different than some of these other countries though, because the Canadian Orthopaedic Association doesn't control the residency programs. And we have powerful provincial organizations that really control a lot of the politics that happen in orthopedics in Canada. So our approach to leadership is somewhat siloed, which has been one of our biggest challenges in trying to advance national programs such as gender equity. So with so much work to do, where were we going to start? So we began a few years ago just starting some roundtable discussions. So we had an open invitation to anyone who wanted to come, male or female. And what we really wanted to do was take the pulse of everybody. We wanted to find suggestions and opinions on the direction that this diversity initiative should take. So we felt it was really important to hear what everyone thought was needed and what our priorities should be. It was clear right from the beginning, and as Deepa so perfectly said, that we were going to have to respectfully challenge the current thought on diversity in Canada and what people thought was right and wrong with our system, and if people even thought anything was wrong with the system. So education as to the issues and the definitions and all these concepts that are essential to understand gender diversity work was really a priority. So for the next 2 years, we laid the groundwork by introducing symposia at our annual general meeting, which is really our largest educational event in Canada for orthopedics. So the first year, like truly laying the foundation, we introduced the concepts of implicit bias, mentorship, and leadership. And it was really interesting to watch people's eyes open because I think nobody had really thought about these things yet in Canada. So we were really starting from that blank slate. Last year, we expanded. We wanted to introduce how the lack of diversity was not a problem with the women. We didn't have to fix the women. It was a structural and an organizational problem. We advocated for putting families first and well-being first and discussed the practices and habits that led to resilient leadership. We created and published a diversity statement, something that was sorely lacking. And this really publicly announced our intentions, I think mostly to our membership, that we were really taking this seriously, but also announcing it publicly that we were going to address diversity within Canadian orthopedics. Leadership, numbers in leadership being a problem, we established a scholarship fund. So this was given out to female emerging leaders and people who wanted some more leadership skills. And it really was to highlight the fact that we need to educate people so that they will take those leadership positions. And that's been continuing on. We created a strategic plan similar to the Australian Orthopaedic Association. We wanted to make a guideline and a roadmap on how we were going to address these things down the road. Obviously, we started with the low-hanging fruit, which is always the easiest, but these things were really missing in Canadian orthopedics. And so they really were a new thing. Mentorship was a huge issue, as everyone knows, and we had the goal of enhancing our mentorship opportunities, but also teaching people how to be mentors. It's all nice to come up to someone and say, I want you to be my mentor, but mentoring is a skill, and we really wanted to address this lack of maybe experience in knowing how to be an excellent mentor. We started small, and at our annual meeting, we started a Mentor for the Day program. So instead of requiring people to put a big, huge commitment in, they could commit for the day. And we tried to match mentees with mentors, and these were male and female. It didn't matter, and tried to match them for the day so they could hang out with someone with more experience or an attending physician for the day and really see what was happening. They could talk about life, they could talk about work, they could talk about job prospects or anything they wanted to talk about. Encouraging female residents, medical students to go into orthopedics has always been a big challenge for, I think, everyone all around the world. We introduced a session at our annual meeting called Real Talk, and this had people in all stages of their career give a really informal symposium, and it was aimed at the university students and the medical students that were in that local city wherever our meeting is being held every year. So it's going to rotate around the country. And this really was directed to actively dispel all the myths that girls shouldn't or couldn't do orthopedics, and that's been super successful. Our gender diversity initiative really picked up speed last year. And as Jenny said, there's just too much work to do and not enough hands. So we created a task force to try to get some more things accomplished. Interestingly, the response to this was huge. Both male and female orthopedic surgeons were interested in becoming part of this task force. And that was really unexpected and really gratifying. So interestingly, the original intent of that was to just get a bunch of things done, but probably the most influential result of that task force was it really brought a big group of female orthopedic surgeons and male orthopedic surgeons who were he for she mentors and sponsors together. And it actually got us talking and brought us together as a cohesive group. We created a private Facebook group. So actually only female orthopedic surgeons in Canada may be part of this Facebook group. And that's been a really great resource. We had a private forum now to communicate with each other. We could throw on, I put this webinar on that. So the female orthopedic surgeons in Canada would know about this. We can communicate. We can ask each other questions, little questions, big questions. We could find mentors, share information, find advice, share experiences. We could vent, which happens sometimes, but we could support each other. We could also congratulate each other for our accomplishments. So gender diversity in Canada, to use an appropriate metaphor for me right now, has been like a snowball rolling downhill. It is really picking up momentum and size, and I hope, truly hope, that it will be unstoppable. This genie is out of the bottle in Canada, and she's not going back in. The momentum of this initiative will be the key to changing culture in Canadian orthopedics. We have bold plans underway to expand our leadership and mentorship programs. We have a very progressive project underway to specifically identify the barriers that exist to women in orthopedics and barriers that exist specifically in Canada. Knowing those barriers, being able to name them, is going to be the key to dismantling them. And finally, although in Canada, gender is our most obvious minority group, we are building intersectionality into all these initiatives as we move forward. In summary, I think Canada should be very, very proud of where we have come in the last few years. This doesn't, of course, mean that we don't have a long way to go. Gender equity is not quite around the immediate corner. And although we consider ourselves a multicultural country, Canada's Indigenous people are very poorly represented in our medical profession. Our system is still bound by the patriarchal tenets that it was created under, but that is slowly changing. I prefer to have my glass half full. Change is coming, culture is changing, and the future is looking much brighter than it did a decade ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie, for such a positive talk and some really inspiring initiatives from Canada. I love the drill talk. That's a great one. So we have a question from Angel, Anna Mayen, and she wants to know, could you talk about the process of setting up an organisation which champions women in orthopaedics? How did you go about conceptualising and executing your vision and mission? And how did you overcome the challenges?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think every country and situation will have a different answer. As I said, we're fairly siloed in Canada on who's in charge. So again, the part-time residency program thing, that's awesome, but COA has no power over residency programs, so that's almost a non-starter for that organization. We had long discussions about this at COA, and what we felt is that we didn't particularly want a gender diversity committee. We wanted to try to organize the diversity initiatives to be run through all of the committees of the COA. So we didn't want to narrow it down and point it out. We really wanted it to trickle through everything. And so we really avoided trying to set up a diversity committee. We really tried to push those concepts from below, and so that they filtered through all the committees. I actually had to fight fairly hard for the task force, and it was mostly because I just needed to help getting stuff done. And there was a little bit of pushback, mostly for that reason, not because they didn't want me to have a task force, but they didn't want it to be so set apart. Does that answer that?
Thanks, Laurie. So we've got another question from Joanna Maggs, and she wants to know a little bit more about your Mentorship for a Day program. How did you advertise this and encourage people to sign up as mentees? And how did you actually do the matching between the mentors and the mentees?
Yeah, another great question. So we put out advertisements, email, and we have all the, e-newsletters and things that go out every week and every month to our membership. So we started advertising it. We also did some personal recruiting of people who we felt would be good mentors, but we basically asked people to volunteer to be mentors or mentees. We went online and we probably pilfered through the Ruth Jackson Society mentorship page and tried to make a questionnaire. And we actually had someone whose interest was in this at the COA head office try to match people up. So some of the questions were, do you really want to be matched with a female who has young children? Because some of your burning questions you want to answer are about when to have kids, childcare, how to balance life with young kids. Then we don't want to match you up with a 60-year-old man. So we asked questions as to what their main burning questions were and what they wanted mentorship on, and then we just tried to manually match them. We're much smaller than the United States, so we can do things like manually match. So
that sounds really interesting and quite difficult as well to match people up.
I think so. And I think, unfortunately, it was just getting running when COVID hit. And of course, we haven't been in person since then. So I think, it's probably going to be a few years in evolution to perfect it. But I think it was really quite successful. And some really great relationships. And I think longer term mentor-menteeships have been formed from that.
And then we've got another question from Denali. And they're asking about the private Facebook group, and this is a really good question. So how do you ensure this space also comes across as welcoming to non-cis women, e.g. transgender women and people who identify as women? And the question goes on to say that labelling something can make it quite difficult, and you don't obviously want to exclude anyone.
Fair enough. True. Again, our numbers are very small in Canada, and there are some of the non-traditional cis female people in charge of that Facebook group. Again, it's a bit of a challenge. How do you reach every single person you want involved in that Facebook group and get them to join? So we currently have something like 175 members, but it's probably more than half of the eligible members. So that is a challenge going forward that we have to ensure, but that certainly is the intent, to include all of those.
Great, thank you, Laurie, and thanks for the questions from all the attendees. Some quite challenging questions there. So that brings us on to our last speaker, who is Vivian Chai, and she is going to speak to us from Malaysia about the Asian Association and her perspective. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you everybody for joining us today. This is 9 p.m. in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So good evening to everybody here. This is a great meeting, and this is a great start to keep the ball rolling for everybody, I hope. When I became the editor for the 50th anniversary commemorative book for the Malaysian Orthopedic Association back in 2017, I decided to record the presence of women in orthopedic in Malaysia. So I decided to write a chapter on it. And I also managed to persuade Professor Tukusara, who is the first Malaysian orthopedic surgeon in Malaysia, to write a chapter on her journey as a female orthopedic surgeon. So I started to collect a lot of data from my female colleagues in the country. And gradually, the data collection expanded to include the neighboring countries in Asia, as you can see. And slowly, with the help of the national presidents of the various orthopedic associations in Asia, I managed to expand the data further. And as you can see here, it's becoming like a lot of countries are involved. And the latest I managed to get involved were New Zealand, Australia, and also America. So these data were presented in many countries in Asia when I became the Orthopedic Association's president 2 years ago. And it kind of created a bit of ripples in all these countries, where, as you probably understand, in Asia, it is still a very much male-dominant society. So these are data of 2019 that you can see. And this probably formed the base of what we have today. So now, ASEAN, as you know, is an association of Southeast Asian nations, and which was founded in 1967. And we have 10 countries in ASEAN. But for ASEAN Orthopedic Association, in short, we call AOA, which was founded in 1979, we have currently only 9 nations. So Laos is still not a member state. So I'm the current president for the ASEAN Orthopedic Association. Now, ASEAN, as you know, with so many countries, although it's from the same region, it has a lot of differences from each other, whether it is culturally or politically or language or religion. So it is a very diverse region in the world. Okay. Let's have a look at how each and every one of the countries are doing. Now, for Brunei, which is the smallest state in ASEAN, there are currently 19 orthopedic surgeons. And out of 19, there are 3 women orthopedic surgeons. And this is the latest data now. 2 years ago, there were only 2 of them. So Dr. Sonali Pandey is one of the earliest, and Dr. Hajar Liza. The latest addition for Brunei is Dr. Lydia Moses. As for Indonesia, Indonesia has made a lot of improvement in the last few years. So they currently have 67 women orthopedic surgeons. 2 years ago, there were only 54. And similarly with other countries in the world, so the women orthopedic surgeons constitute about 5% of the total number of orthopedic surgeons in the country. And Dr. Yvonne Sarah, who is a spine surgeon, is the first Indonesian woman orthopedic surgeon. As for Philippines, Philippines has quite many women orthopedic surgeons, 58, and as you can see, there are just some of them here. They are growing very, very fast for Philippines. Philippines women are very active in orthopedics. As you can see here, Dr. Teresita Arte, who was the first woman orthopedic surgeon in Philippines, and that was back in 1971. You know, I was just in the first grade in school, and she was already an orthopedic surgeon. And she was trained as a pediatric orthopedic surgeon in the UK, and she became the president for Philippine Orthopedic Association as early as 1986. And she sat as a chair for the Philippines Board of Orthopedic for many years. And she is still very active, and I still see her around in the POA meetings nowadays. Many years later, Dr. Virginia Cablin became the second woman president for POA, and she was succeeded by Dr. Julian Aguila the next year in 2016. One thing about Philippine Orthopedic Association is that they have a wing under POA that they call Philippine Society of Women Orthopedic Surgeons. So they are very active, and the current president is Dr. Amelia, and the vice president, as you can see here, is Dr. Janice Ann. As for Thailand, they have 104 women orthopedic surgeons right now, and they also have made a lot of improvement in the last 2 years. The first woman orthopedic surgeon is Professor Tanika Chamlee Prasad, who is the current Vice Dean for Education for Prince of Songkhla University. And Dr. Tanika is very well respected in Thailand, and she is also very active in the ARCOS. ARCOS is the Royal Thai Orthopedic Society. So as you can see, the Thai women are also doing very well. As for Singapore, I have to mention Dr. Kanwaljit Soin. Dr. Kanwaljit Soin is really a fantastic woman. As you can see here, she became an orthopedic surgeon. She's probably the first ASEAN woman to become an orthopedic surgeon in 1970. Okay? And she is a hand surgeon, and this is a really very highly accomplished and respected woman in Singapore. As you can see, she founded very early, back in the 80s, a gender equality organization called AWARE in Singapore. And she was the award winner for Woman of the Year back in 1992. Woman Who Make a Difference award by International Women Forum in Washington. And when she grew older, she founded a group called the Women's Initiative for Aging Successfully. And she's also a very good writer. And she has written 2 books, and both about women. One must not forget her is that she is also a member of Parliament for Singapore. So Dr. Kanwaljit Soin was probably the first woman in ASEAN to become an orthopedic surgeon. And the number of orthopedic surgeons in Singapore has doubled in the last 2 years. So in 2019, there were only 8 of them. But in February 2021, when I last made the head call, I found out that there are currently 16 of them. And you can see they are really powerful women here, and most of them are all subspecialty trained. So there's a lot of young and active women surgeons in Singapore. So as for Malaysia, you can see Professor Tunku Sarah was the first woman to become an orthopedic surgeon, and that was back in the 1990s, many years after Singapore and Philippines. Professor Tunku Sarah is a hand and micro surgeon, and she attended medical school in London, but came back and worked in the University of Malaya, and she has always been in University of Malaya until she just recently retired from her work. So there were very few women in orthopedic in Malaysia back in the 1990s. I won't say this is a very lonely journey, but in Malaysia, we were very well accepted by our male colleagues. It can be quite challenging to work in those years, but I must say that those were probably the best years of my career, as you can see that. So all of us, we stay on in the system. None of us left for the more lucrative practice, and we kept on mentoring other women surgeons and paving for more to follow. So there are more and more female orthopedic surgeons now. So we have a total of 101 in the last count, and that makes up about 10% of all the orthopedic surgeons we have in Malaysia. There is a recent survey conducted by my colleague, Dr. Liu, and also Dr. Ima from the University Putra, Malaysia, and we found out that there are about close to 39% of all women orthopedic surgeons are subspecialty trained. The biggest groups belongs to the pediatric orthopedics group, followed by hand and microsurgery, arthroplasty, as you can see here. So this is very encouraging, and this is a good sign that women surgeons in Malaysia are making good progress. We are very proud to have 4 women presidents for the Malaysian Orthopedic Association. As you can see, the first woman president was Professor Tunku Sarah, and she was the president for MOA back in the 2006. She was also the ex-head of department for the Orthopedic Department, University of Malaya, and she was the founder of Malaysian Society of Hand Surgery. Professor Azlina Abbas, who is an arthroplasty surgeon, became the second woman president for MOA back in 2014. And she is also ex-head of department for the orthopedic department in University of Malaya. I became the third woman to president for MOA just about 2 years ago. And after that, I became the president for ASEAN Orthopedic Association. I single-handedly founded and led the oncology unit in Hospital Kuala Lumpur. Our current president is Professor Sharifah Ruhi, who is a hand and microsurgeon, and she was also the ex-head of the hand unit in National University of Malaya, and the ex-president of Malaysian Society of Hand Surgery. So we have 4 women presidents for Malaysian Orthopedic Society. So quite interesting. Another very interesting thing that happened when I was the president was that the top 3 posts in the council of Malaysian Orthopedic Associations were nominated by women. So me as a president, the president-elect was Professor Sharifah Ruhi, and secretary was Professor Hasla, who is an oncology surgeon. So in the College of Surgeons Malaysia, we have a woman chapter. So in MOA, we do not have that, but in the College of Surgeons, we have a woman chapter that meets every now and then and discuss and also have some meetings about various issues in our work. So this is College of Surgeons Malaysia group. As for other ASEAN countries, it's very hard for me to collect latest data from Myanmar, as you know that there's political issues back in Myanmar now. So all I have is the data of 2019, which shows that there were about 10 women orthopedic surgeons in Myanmar. But for Cambodia and Laos, there were no women orthopedic surgeons. One country that I failed to obtain any data is Vietnam. So I have no data about Vietnam's orthopedic association to share with you. What is holding our women back in this part of the world is that, as you know, this is mostly still a very traditional society with a lot of unequal distribution of duties for women. The society don't really care very much if you are a teacher, a doctor, or you are just a housewife. So there are a lot of duties that a woman has to shoulder, like childbearing, childcare, housework, care for other family members. So if a woman has the guts to say, okay, I want to become an orthopedic surgeon, sometimes the response from the family or even the friends is that, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Do you think you can handle all this work together? So this is quite a troubling kind of trend still in many parts of the region in ASEAN. And there is a very deep-rooted ASEAN kind of male dominance as well as gender bias, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And many men still have a lot of negative idea about the role of the woman. And there's a lot of, they feel threatened if the woman is better, and they are unwilling to work together with women sometimes. And for many women, because they have been brought up in the society that worship manpower, many women are still doubting their own capabilities, and they have a lot of confidence issues, whether they are able to take the challenge of becoming a doctor, let alone becoming a surgeon or the orthopedic surgeon. So there's a lot of problem still in both parties, men and also the women. So it is not uncommon for women in this region to face a lot of challenges at work, especially when they are doctors or surgeons. There are a lot of skepticism from both the patients and also the fellow colleagues about the capability of the women counterparts. And they are very often judged more harshly than their male surgeons. And it is not uncommon to hear that somebody has suffered some sexual harassment at work, either physical or non-physical. And sometimes the woman who suffers such harassment chose to be quiet because there are concerns about repercussions and also for speaking out. Sometimes they might even get punished because, they make the complaint. So they're also not uncommon to hear about unequal promotion opportunities. And this one can be quite apparent sometimes, even in the institutions. And work-life balance can be a real challenge for many of the women who have to shoulder a lot of responsibilities beside the work that they have to do. And lack of role models is also a serious issue. Not so much in Malaysia, Singapore, but very common in other countries like Indonesia, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. So if you look at all the statistics, the numbers are really increasing in ASEAN countries for women orthopedic surgeons. It is something that we can celebrate and be proud of, but it is not really just enough just to have more people joining us. The thing is that there is a very troubling issue, is that the culture, the whole working culture needs to change from within to become truly gender neutral meritocracy. And how are we going to achieve this? And because of the differences of all these nations in the ASEAN region, it is really very difficult for me to have a formula for everybody. So, but things are definitely getting better and better. And we have to, women surgeons must continue to break barriers, no matter where we are, and to take control, show the way, and inspire other women to become better surgeons and leaders. And in time, I'm sure we will be able to stand side by side and with the guys at work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vivian, for a really inspiring talk. And it's really interesting to see the change that has taken place across Malaysia and the East. So we've got one question from Ben, and I think that would be a good question for all of the panel to answer. So Ben has commented that there has been a wellbeing and burnout survey across the UK, and the results have shown that it seems as if women, BAME and LGBTQ have a higher rate of burnout. So do the panel think that's because of additional pressures of the culture, being predominantly male and white within orthopaedics, or are there other factors at play here? And I'll open that question to the panel.
Caroline, I would say regarding the issues for women and minorities, a lot of it is that relates to the term of microaggression. Small things that happen on a day-to-day basis that make people feel not included or challenge them in their workplace. And one idea I read recently about this was, one microaggression is like a very small paper cut, but if you're getting thousands of them, you end up exsanguinating. So, it's just a cumulative effect of environments. And I think those environments are improving, but I suspect that this is part of the problem.
That's really interesting. And I think that's a really good point. And any other viewpoints from across the world from our international panel?
I think it also, at least for women, feel like we have to work twice as hard. Maybe we probably do have to work twice as hard to get the same things that a privileged man might get. And I'm sure the same is true of minorities. So, that's less sleep every night. That's less family time. That's more frustration. And I think those things all build up. Even if the expectations are us on ourselves, but I think they're both us on ourselves and others on us.
I think that's a very good point.
I agree with both Laurie and Jenny there. I think that's true. I think certainly the culture has a role to play. And I think, as you say, we always feel that we have to be better. And we're sort of firefighting all the time, if you like, at work and at home, because we're trying to juggle so many different roles and different balls at the same time that itself is quite stressful. So, yeah.
Thank you, Deepa. And then another question is, how can you challenge harsh judgments of females compared to males in assessments?
Sorry.
Go on, Deepa.
I was going to say that's really interesting, actually. So we, in our local region, there's been quite a bit of sort of concern about bias in the ARCP process. And so this is something that we are actively looking into in our region, and I know that it's come up in other regions as well. So for those who don't know, the ARCP process is the annual review of competence progression for the registrars as they move from year to year. It's their annual review, and it has been noticed that there is bias in that process, and it's very interesting because I think a lot of it is unconscious again. So it's about all the things that we were saying about making sure that the panels are properly trained in equality, diversity, and unconscious bias. That's a really big part of it, I think.
Thank you, Deepa. Ron, have you got any viewpoints from across the pond?
Yeah, I think in part of my talk, there was that allusion to standardized letters of recommendation, and assessments in the same way, if they can become more standardized so that there's less of a judgmental approach, but more of an approach that allows for responses that kind of put all of the people being assessed in a similar way to be measured. I think that can go a long way toward decreasing conscious and unconscious bias.
Thank you, Ron. And I think Carrie's also brought up a very good point that it may well be because of the COVID pandemic and the effects on childcare and having to homeschool, putting additional pressures on parents and making it very difficult to juggle career and home lifestyle. So thank you.
A question, Caroline, of Vivian. Yeah. Is it still largely a choice between career forfeiting the opportunity to have a family if you go into orthopedics in Asia?
I would not say so. I think this is more of personal choice, whether a woman wants to get married or not, even if she's a surgeon. I mean, this is not really felt, not very obvious in Malaysia. Many of my colleagues are married. The minorities are actually the single women. So many of us have learned how to juggle very well and multitask along the way. And I have not come across a big problem in Malaysia. I know this because many of the young women, they were trainees, and they've gone through our department and also hospital. Not an obvious problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Could I just add one other comment about the judging of women? I think there are a lot of unconscious biases around judging people to be self-confident or not, and that is often interpreted as lacking the way women present compared to the way men present. Often our trainees have been told that they don't seem to be confident, and a lot of this bias is just understanding the way women may present a little differently to men. And also even for minorities, people will feel more confident if they're in an environment where they feel part of that community and well supported. But if they're a minority, they're not often going to present as very self-confident. So just being aware of situations and those unconscious biases, I think, is quite important in the way we assess our trainees.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Jenny. And then we've got another question from the audience. Is anyone directly addressing sexual harassment in orthopedics with training directed specifically towards the aggressor rather than towards how to cope with it? and the audience feels that this seems to be a very common issue within the specialty, but a sensitive subject to approach. Would anyone like to take that question? It's a hard one to answer.
I can't say I've been directly involved, so I don't feel I have anything to offer on that question. I don't know if Andrew has, in his roles at AOA, been involved in any discussions.
Not directly. I mean, I think it's probably underreported. And I can certainly see how it is a potential issue that people aren't particularly well aware of. I mean, certainly if any issues like that were brought to our attention, we would be very much looking at supporting whoever made who brought the issue to our attention, and then speaking very much directly to the person that had been involved with it. But I haven't been involved with it personally, no.
Within my organization, there's a expectation of an annual review of a principles of responsibility, and it touches on these topics, and certainly there's a means by which to adjudicate concerns, and the aggressor is dealt with in a fashion that would be seen as appropriate. Certainly, these issues are tough too, because there is the confidentiality of the accused. So many times the accuser does not know what eventually occurred to the accused, and there was retribution found, and a measure of discipline and re-education. But you can't always share with the people who.
I think we've lost the connection to Ron. So I hope that answers the question from the audience. Again, there are structures within all of the hospitals where we work, which you can also approach if you're unfortunate enough to be in that situation. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for this first in a series of 3 webinars, and there will be another 2 which will be advertised, and a special thanks to our international faculty, some of whom have stayed up past their bedtime to give some really interesting talks. So it's great to see everyone together today, and I hope to see you all in a few weeks for the next in our series of webinars. Please check out the IODA website and please join. It's free to join, and there's absolutely no bar on whichever stage you are in your career. We're just trying to encourage everyone to join orthopaedics because it's by far the best specialty. So thank you all, and we'll draw the webinar to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you, OrthoHub too. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.